Okay, awesome. Hi, Mustafa. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself, my three?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for jumping on this morning. I know everybody is busy, so I really appreciate you taking the time to come on here and tell us a little more about your newest venture and your journey so far, actually.
Hmm,
I'm pretty excited.
absolutely. Excited to be on the pod.
Awesome. Great. So, before we get started, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about your journey so far, and then we can go on to the rest of the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And my three, I'm not sure if you remember, but you actually invited me to this podcast back when we were both in Antler in like early April. But then I pivoted, then pivoted again, then pivoted again. And now it's late November and so grateful to finally be on the pod. This is much overdue, but just to quickly introduce myself, I am an entrepreneur and growth executive focused on digital native brands. I've worked with, mentored, and consulted over 400 startups at accelerators like Founder Institute and companies like Clearco. When I was 16, I started a YouTube channel that paid for my university tuition. I then helped build a SaaS marketplace that grew very quickly. I started my own consultancy for B2B, SaaS, and e-commerce brands focused on growth and go-to-market strategy. And before my current venture, I helped build an agency that grew very quickly as well. Now I'm building go-to-market AI, solving a lot of the challenges that we're seeing when it comes to cold email and cold outreach as a whole. And so far, so good. We built a team of 4 full-time, 2 ex-AWS engineers and 2 ex-Clearco go-to-market leaders. And my three, I was telling you about how we're looking for that third engineer, that fifth full-time person. And we finally confirmed them. This brilliant software engineer that just left IBM that's going to be joining us in the coming weeks. We launched our first feature last week. We're launching another feature next week. First 3 enterprise clients confirmed. First dozen SMBs onboarded. Not a lot of time has gone by, but very happy with the traction so far.
That's amazing. There is so much to unpack there, and I love that because that's all what this conversation is about. So tell me, after having such a varied career, what made you choose go to market for AI and specifically email and cold email? Because that's a very small sliver out of everything that you've done so far.
Yeah, so we wanted to focus on the highest impact problem that we can solve. And as you can imagine, cold email right now is just a fucking disaster. And we've seen so many customers that used to rely on this channel as their primary means of acquisition and have since moved away from it because they're seeing diminishing returns, they're seeing diminishing performance, especially over the last year. And even though it still remains as one of the most reliable, one of the most scalable, one of the most efficient communication channels, and that's why we think it's still a problem worth fixing. It's easier now than ever to buy millions of leads from some stale database like Apollo or ZoomInfo for $100 a month and use AI-generated messages following a static sequence to eventually end up in Google and Microsoft's spam filters. So there is an urgent need for a much warmer approach to cold outreach, and it's more important now than ever to not only land in inboxes but have contextually relevant messaging for each prospects so we can do a much better job of nurturing these conversations for the overwhelming majority of prospects that aren't going to be ready to buy right away. And we are doing this by dynamically optimizing each of these individual variables using full funnel intelligence. So we are reaching the right customer with the right message at exactly the right time.
That makes so much sense. And you're so right that it is now more important than ever. There are very drastic stances people take. They're like, oh, cold email is dead. Or they go like, cold email is just the only thing out there and it is so important and you do or die, but make it work somehow. And I feel like there's a danger in both of them and both of them are inaccurate. Email marketing, cold outreach is not dead, but it has become more nuanced and it has evolved and you need to keep up with that. Have you noticed when you were talking about it becoming more nuanced, have you noticed any changes in the Outlook and Gmail filter spams lately that also prompted you or encouraged you further to start building Luella?
So Google and Microsoft are constantly updating their spam filters to combat abuse from spammers and bad actors, which again there are a lot of, and it is a constant algorithmic battle. So both Gmail and Outlook are making like near weekly changes at this point to stay ahead of malicious activity. And a few examples of that is like Google rolling out stricter bulk sending policies, and Google and Microsoft, they're using AI on their side as well to do a much better job of detecting spam. Outlook added user warnings for suspicious links, and IP fingerprinting of sending servers, and like these updates are going to keep coming. These updates are not going to stop, and honestly, these updates are very much needed because there are so many spammers and grifters that continue to give cold outreach a bad name. And cold outreach, again, is one of the most efficient channels for client acquisition, but we need clear guardrails to preserve its effectiveness over time. Spraying and praying hurts everyone. It hurts the entire channel. It makes it worse for everyone. And that's why we're focused on building Luella as an exclusive platform for vetted, trusted senders only. We're anti-spam, anti-grip. We prioritize ethical, tasteful outreach. And that's why we have a lot of the same guardrails that Gmail and Outlook have built for themselves.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I loved how you mentioned that they are using AI as well. So why aren't you? You're immediately on the losing side if you're not taking the best technology that's out there and using it to your advantage. So I love that. But let me take a step back. And when you were talking about how grifters have given them a bad reputation, it's because of these activities, right? How can warm up or effective warm up on new outreach emails boost deliverability for existing ones? Like I'm a little confused there. Can you add a little more light to that?
Yeah, so that's actually the first feature that we went to market with. Before we could focus on sending emails, we need to make sure those emails get delivered in the first place. And deliverability, as you know, is such a disaster. And as AI makes it easier to spam millions of leads with generic personalization, it's gotten much easier to land in spam or like not get delivered at all. And email warming is a tactic to improve your deliverability by simulating real conversations between corporate mailboxes. And most email warming tools just haven't kept up with the many changes that Google and Microsoft have made and their stricter spam filters. So a lot of the tactics that may have worked a year ago or several years ago just don't work anymore. Like they can easily be detected. And it's gotten to a point where there are a lot of experts in this industry that are recommending avoiding email warming altogether because they're just not seeing the results anymore. So we have had to take a very different approach when building out our own email warming infrastructure. And Maitri, are you familiar with shared IP pools? Do you know what that is?
I do know a little bit, but I think if you give a refresh of it, it can't hurt anyone.
Absolutely. So shared IP pools you can think of them as these giant servers that have several thousands of senders within them. And within those giant servers, you'll have both good actors that are running cold email tastefully and ethically, but you'll also have bad actors that are spraying and praying millions with generic templates. And when you are using that shared infrastructure, you're getting exposure to those bad actors. And Google and Microsoft have reached a point where they can actually detect if you are using email warming tools because of that exposure to bad actors. So what we've done instead is rather than having one big server with thousands of senders, we create our own mini server, which we call a cluster. And that cluster has a completely separate IP, and you have full control over that cluster. You can create a new cluster in as little as 3 clicks. You have full control to which mailboxes you allow as part of that cluster, just to keep your sender reputation safe and avoid that exposure to those bad actors. And Maitri, are you familiar with the messages that are sent back and forth to simulate the warm-up conversations? Have you seen what those look like?
Yeah, they're very random. And they have no context. They could be talking about lollipops, and you are using it for IPAM and DNS servers. It's totally different, right? Not related.
Yeah, they use generic templates, right? And these templates often have nothing to do with your unique buyer's profile or industry. Imagine if you're selling go-to-market software and Google and Microsoft sees that all of a sudden you're talking about real estate and agriculture and shit that has nothing to do with go-to-market software. Like, that's suspicious, right? And the whole purpose of email warming is to simulate natural conversations to improve your response rate. So when you start doing cold outreach, your metrics look favorable in the eyes of Google and Microsoft, and you're less likely to get banned. And that's why we ingest real context around your customers, your past customer conversations, your website, and industry context, just so we're simulating natural warm-up conversations using AI, moving away from those generic templates. And there are so many platforms out there that just do email warming. It's just a set it and forget it platform. And we have built the infrastructure around continuous monitoring because, again, email warming and deliverability is going to be a constant challenge. And we need to keep up with the constant changes that Google and Microsoft are making. And that's why Luella actually surfaces you red flags and alerts, any actions that your team needs to take to make sure you are running cold outreach and actually landing in those inboxes. And most importantly, no grifters, no spammers. We do have a thorough vetting process just to make sure it is only high quality senders that are using our infrastructure. And again, our competitors let anyone and everyone willing to pay, $30 a month, use their infrastructure. We only want the highest quality senders to be part of Luella and use the infrastructure that we're building.
That makes sense. So when you were talking about cluster, IP clusters, what it reminded me of as an analogy is a public pool versus a private pool.
Yes.
You have no idea what goes on in the public pool, and the minute you get into that, you're part of the filth. Whereas a private pool is just for specific users, and you can expect all of them to maintain decorum. And I like how you touched on the continuous improvement approach, which brings me to my next question. So, does Luella only work for new email inboxes, or is it also for existing ones?
Whether it's an existing account or a brand new one that we can actually create for you, Luella helps you restore your sender reputation by warming up those domains, segmenting high quality contacts, throttling your email volume, analyzing engagement data just so we're dynamically optimizing the warm-up conversations and removing any spam triggers just to rebuild that trust with inbox providers. So again, whether it be a brand new account, an account that you'd like to recover, or one that we create for you, we'd be happy to support. And if it is an account that you are recovering, we will go through a process of analyzing why you've had problems with that account and educate your team on deliverability best practices, just so next time around you are putting that best foot forward.
That makes sense. It's almost like a consulting approach you're taking, right? You also look at what they've done in the past and how you can help them get to ground zero and then build from there. That's amazing. What can entrepreneurs in this day and age do, or what should they know about running these cold campaigns and avoiding those spam folders? Do you have feedback or advice for anyone who's looking to get started in this space?
So it all starts with domain health. So making sure you are configuring your SPF, DKIM, DMARC records. These are essential authentications for your domain just to prevent spoofing. You should also set up domain forwarding just to avoid breaking authentication, and making sure you are regularly auditing your domain health. There are tools like Google Postmaster to help you stay ahead of any of these kind of issues. The leads that you are using, that you are sending to, are also of crucial importance, right? Garbage in, you'll get garbage out. And you want to avoid, these stale databases because, people change jobs, people change their email address, right? The last thing that you want is to get a bunch of leads, hit send, and, see immediate bounces and just terrible deliverability right out of the gate. Have you heard of a vendor called Clay?
I have, yes.
So Clay actually uses LinkedIn Sales Nav as their primary database. And what's the database that's going to be the most accurate and reliable than LinkedIn? People do a pretty damn good job of keeping their profiles up to date in terms of their most recent title and employment. And they have a waterfall enrichment, a multi-step enrichment that leverages several dozens of databases to find that optimal email. So we've had a lot of success using Clay, but you can also use Luella for more intent-driven engagement. So using several hundreds of unique data sources to understand who are the people that actually have a problem that your company is uniquely positioned to solve. Email warming, we've already talked about. Again, avoiding those shared IP pools that could, link your emails to those bad actors and spammers, and using dedicated IPs for your campaigns wherever you can. Making sure you are gradually increasing the volume, starting small and increasing the emails for warming, more incrementally. And you actually can use a custom domain. You don't have to use your main domain for cold outreach. You can create an additional domain. If your domain is abc.com, perhaps get abc.com or try abc.com, and you can have that domain redirect to your website, just so you're not risking your primary domain's reputation. When it comes to sending, you want to be as human as possible. You want to avoid overly polished language and repetitive templates, which again makes it a lot easier to detect on Google and Microsoft's side. Spelling mistakes are good. Spelling mistakes are human, right?
Nice. Yeah. We need to hear that more.
Exactly. And there's so many little things like that can actually help you from an efficiency standpoint when it comes to sending. Sending volumes are also very important. So you don't want to send hundreds of emails a day. The rule that we have internally is 40 emails per day per mailbox, and that's what we recommend to our clients as well. Making sure you are spacing out your sending patterns. You're not just blasting everything in the morning. You are spacing it out throughout the day, and ideally using those intent signals to understand when is the optimal time to send that email. Wherever you can, intent-driven engagement is where this industry is headed. Replacing those static sequences with more tailored workflows, based on the recipient's action, behavior, intent signals, and most importantly, research. There's so many AI tools that are just missing context, and the kind of personalization that they use is super generic. It's like, oh, notice that you're based out of New York or some shit like that, right? That's not personable, right? People are getting so many emails with that kind of generic personalization. You really need to do a lot more research and have much more contextual, prospect-specific messaging to be able to break through the noise. And being able to find, tidbits of insight that are hyper-relevant to that prospect is going to be so important from a conversion standpoint when it comes to sending. And when you do launch that campaign, your job is not done. There is an element of scaling and optimizing, constantly monitoring your deliverability and taking any actions that are needed to improve your metrics over time. You can A/B test, but A/B testing is the old school way of optimizing your cold outreach. We can now use reinforcement learning, leveraging machine learning algorithms to improve outreach by adapting to the intelligence of the recipient behavior that we're seeing. And today, we help you, build and optimize, each of these essential components, just so you are avoiding spam and you are protecting your domain reputation.
That makes sense. Wow, there was so much to unlock and unpack there, but that was wonderful. Something you said towards the end really stuck out to me. A/B testing is the thing of the past. I love that, but that's also kind of a wake-up sign because a lot of B2B companies still struggle with just A/B testing, and they have to fight for budgets and all of that. When it comes to reinforcement learning, how can a company do that, right, with cold outbound? And B, have you used any cold outbound campaigns with that concept in mind that has worked really well, maybe within Luella or early clients, early customers who have done it and seen success?
Yeah, and you're completely right that, A/B testing is the old school way of doing things. And mainly because, with AI and hyper-personalization, no two emails are going to be the same, right? There are just so many variables that you have to take consideration of where a standard A/B test no longer makes sense. And no one right now is doing a good job when it comes to reinforcement learning to dynamically optimize each stage of the funnel. That is something that we're actually experimenting with internally. There are a lot of solutions that pretend to do this. We haven't officially launched with the solution as of yet, but running a lot of those kind of experiments internally, and we hope to have that part launched to the public very soon.
Very, very cool. I also was going through your website, and there's this one particular piece that says it works on optimizing your landing page and personalizing it. Is that part of the same concept, or is that the particular feature?
We don't only want to optimize the email copy. It's very easy to do that. A lot of companies already do that. Yeah. We want to also dynamically optimize who are the people that we're reaching out to, when is the optimal time we should be reaching out to them, and what in terms of the message that will provide the most value for that individual prospect. And outside of email copy, there is so much additional collateral that would be helpful to that unique prospect. not only landing pages, but videos, voice notes, any lead magnets, all of those can be dynamically optimized. And that's another larger component that we are actively working on from a reinforcement learning standpoint.
That's amazing. What I'm hearing is there are going to be many one-to-one campaigns that are going to launch that are going to serve millions of people at scale, and companies can do that instantly or more easily than they could before, which is very exciting to me as a marketer. I'm like, yes, personalization, messaging is so important. Have you run any successful outreach campaigns within Luella that you would want to touch on and say, hey, we tested this out and this was a smashing success?
I'll mention both a successful strategy that we've seen on email, but also on LinkedIn, just a piece of crowd, because again, it is a multi-channel approach that we're leveraging, and cold outreach is still very much the primary means of getting customers on the phone and into our ecosystem. And when it comes to email, like I mentioned before, this industry is moving towards intent-driven communication, and there are so many data sources like your website visitors. Understanding who are the people that are visiting your website, how often are they visiting your website, is such an important metric. G2 and Trustpilot reviews. If we have customers complaining about our competitors, leaving negative reviews around our competitors, perhaps they should get an email from us. Perhaps if we are uniquely positioned to solve a lot of the pain points that they're expressing in that negative G2 or Trustpilot review, perhaps it would be valuable to them to hear from us. I'm seeing a lot of companies use like product usage as a data point. There's tools like Mixpanel and Amplitude that will allow you to feed that intelligence to improve your outreach. Podcast transcripts, my three. How many people do you get on a podcast that just spend an hour just venting? Every pain point, solutions that they're exploring, challenges that they're seeing. People are generally very open on these podcasts, and we can analyze podcast transcripts to identify tidbits of information, identify, what is most relevant to that unique prospect, and what can we mention in terms of the content itself to, maximize our chances of providing value to that prospect. CRM data is table stakes, marketing activities, table stakes, champion tracking, and being a part of that person's journey as they're moving from job to job is table stakes. Literally hundreds of these kind of data sources that we're currently in the process of unifying to have that central intelligence to fuel your outreach. We have to get to a point. The only way that we can solve this problem is by using outreach to understand who are the people that we should be targeting, when is the optimal time we should be reaching out to them, and what, in terms of the content itself, will be optimal to provide value to that individual prospect. And it's not only just individual pieces of intelligence that we use, but we are constantly testing different combinations of intelligence. So perhaps rather than just using their website visitors, perhaps a combination of them raising funding, them posting a job post on LinkedIn around a specific role, and they have decision makers at that company complaining about one of their vendors. Perhaps it's that combination of intelligence that allows us to get to that right person.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And when you were telling me this answer, I just had fireworks go off in my brain, because that is the best part. Marketers today struggle with the dark funnel. We don't know. Once they come on our website, we can see what they're doing on our website, maybe a little bit. But once they're off, you have no idea what is taking up their mind share, what they're thinking about, right? But being able to collate all these sources together and getting a holistic picture of it is what provides so much insight, which is very, very exciting.
And imagine if we can equip every founder, every salesperson with that kind of capability, where rather than you having to do all that digging yourself, we can surface the most relevant intelligence that you should be using for that kind of outreach. And that's what I'll say for email. I'll also mention something that has been more recently successful for me on LinkedIn. So Maitri, have you gotten any cold voice notes on LinkedIn?
No, but I have sent some, and they work well. They do.
And the reason for why is because I don't think many people know that you can send voice notes on LinkedIn, because on LinkedIn desktop, it's not even an option that you can use. It's
Yeah.
only on mobile. You have to
Wow.
open the mobile app, and it's like a tiny icon at like the bottom of your screen. So
Yeah.
I think the majority of folks like don't even know that this is something that you can use. And creating a voice note is so much more difficult, right? Because you have to hyper personalize it to each individual person. Uh,
Yeah.
and it takes time to record. Sometimes I slip up, I have to record it again. And it's
Yeah.
very easy to just take a text message and blast it across so many different people. So
Yeah.
when you have a founder that's building it stealth and you get a voice note from them, and when you get a voice note on LinkedIn, there's absolutely no context. There's no text. There's no
Yeah.
headline. There's no transcript. There's only one option and one option only, and that is to click play. And when they click
Yes.
play, and in those first 5 seconds, if you hyper personalize it to them and you surface a piece of information that is hyper relevant to them, they're more likely to listen to the rest of the clip
That's
and
true.
more likely to respond. And I get so many people, even though it is not a fit, even though they don't have a problem that we can solve, they are still thanking me for that personalized voice note. And
Yeah.
I think it just amazing job of breaking through the noise in such a saturated channel like LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And it does take a lot more time, but the effectiveness in response rate is just so much better, and it's worth that added effort to make it hyper personalized.
I 100% agree. And I like that you touched on that because that brings me to my next question. What are some metrics that you look at to determine if the outreach campaign was a success? I know you mentioned conversion rate, but that's like bottom line, right?
Yeah.
Are there other indicators that you look at and you go, oh, okay, we're not there in terms of conversion, but there are these early signs that I would consider a success?
So when it comes to metrics, don't be fooled by bullshit metrics. It's very easy to just put a number on a dashboard and
Yeah.
make a decision based on your false understanding of what actually goes into that metric. And open rates are an iconic example of that. Every email will eventually be clicked by Google or Microsoft to detect malware, and that is no way indicative of real interest, right? And we get a lot of clients telling us, "Oh, our open rates are really strong, but responses are bullshit."
Yeah.
And we have to go through the process of educating them on what actually goes into that metric and how open rates are, often, inflated. Deliverability scores are another one of those metrics. So that is a metric that a lot of email warming tools just invented. It's like a combination of all sorts of other metrics, and they get to decide what goes into that metric. And a lot of these email warming tools are incentivized to inflate this metric as best they can, just to have you think that everything is working, everything's sunshine and rainbows, even though it is not. What we focus on, number one, the North Star metric, obviously, revenue generated. If we're not creating pipeline value, then that campaign is not worth it to anyone, right? Meetings booked, but not only meetings booked, ICP aligned meetings, making sure we're not just filling our calendars, but with people that actually want to meet with us and that we want to meet with them. There's so many like AI SDRs that do a good job of driving workflow efficiencies, do a good job of filling your calendar, but they don't do a good job of driving incremental revenue and actually bringing those ICP aligned meetings. And that's a big challenge that we're seeing with a lot of the AI automated solutions that we're seeing in the go-to-market space today.
Yeah.
Not only response rates, but positive versus negative. What is the overall sentiment and engagement quality
Yeah.
from the responses that we are getting? Again, cold outreach is a top of funnel activity. There's a lot of insights that you can derive from these responses to how prospects are responding to your general messaging as a brand. Conversion rates, again, which is more bottom of funnel, to assess the overall effectiveness of the channel. And also, something that is often overlooked is cross-channel attribution. Not only should you be looking at cold email, but other channels as well. How does cold email interact with the many other traffic sources that you are investing in as well? Is cold email the first click, the last click, the middle click? Which other traffic sources are customers interacting with before eventually converting? Obviously, there's all sorts of other metrics, but those are the ones that we focus on the most.
That makes sense. And there were so many things that you said over there that I want to go back to. Number one is the vanity metrics that you were focusing on. Such a big topic, such an important topic. I did not know that deliverability scores are a a collation of other metrics. I did not know that, so thank you for that. And open rate, regardless of whether Google opened it or an actual human opened it, it just tells you that maybe your headline or subject line was intriguing enough for them to check, or it was a mistake. There's so many other reasons that could attribute to that inflated open rate. So I totally agree. Another example is responses. Sometimes out of office responses also get counted as response rate. And I'm like, no, it's not a response because it never reached the human who was supposed to read it. So I 100% agree with that. And I love that point. But how are you educating them? Is it you're getting on a call with them and talking to them one-on-one? Or do you have like a workshop? Because that piece is very important, especially in the line of work that you're in.
Definitely. And I'll do you one better, Maitri. We don't even have those metrics on our platform on Luella. Like it's only the most important metrics from a deliverability and sending perspective that we are putting in front of you. And transparency is a big problem in this industry. Like there are a lot of crucial metrics that a lot of the existing tools do not show you. You have to ask their support team to get for you. And we're putting all of those metrics right front and center. So removing those bullshit metrics and surfacing more of the important metrics that you should be monitoring on a regular basis. And through the vetting call that we do have, as we are getting a better understanding of their outreach practices, just to make sure they are one of those good actors that we want using our infrastructure, we also do go through a process of education wherever we do see gaps in terms of their understanding or strategy. We're having those conversations one-to-one to provide that guidance and support.
That's amazing. And these are all so exciting. What is in store over the next 5 years, 3 years, 1 year, whatever timeline you have? What is next for Luella and for you? What is your vision for continuing to build this?
Yeah, so AI and automation can either be abused to exploit the channel, or it can be used to make things better. And unfortunately, most of this industry is still focused on volume-based outreach instead of building long-term relationships and providing value to your prospects. And again, it's easier now than ever to spam millions to some database that anyone can get access to, from Apollo or ZoomInfo, with AI-generated emails. And it's so much more difficult to achieve the kind of outreach that adapts to each prospect's unique journey. And I'll give you an example of one of the biggest clients I ever had the opportunity of closing, and it took a year and a half to eventually get them over the finish line. So when they announced that they raised a round of funding, they got an email from me congratulating them, providing them resources on how I supported other venture-backed startups to scale efficiently and the different ways that I can support them. When they announced that they're expanding into new traffic sources, they got an email from me. And it wasn't until they started complaining about their affiliate agency where finally managed to get them on a call and they finally signed the contract. It took a year and a half of relationship building, of providing value, of being part of their journey until we eventually closed the deal. And most prospects are not going to be ready to buy right away. It's more important now than ever to make sure we are nurturing those conversations to get them at the right moment. And again, it takes a lot of time to do that research. Maitri, you're doing that research yourself, drafting those messages. And imagine if we can do this with AI and automation, equipping each founder and salesperson with the ability to make this process so much more accessible. And this is a much more difficult problem to solve. This is the kind of problem that requires data collection and integrations across the entire funnel. This is the kind of problem that requires advanced algorithms to keep up with this industry's evolving landscape. This is the kind of problem that requires dynamic content generation to adapt to each individual prospect. And that's the problem that we're hyper-focused on solving. And this is where we see the industry is headed. And obviously, just like every startup, we have that broader vision that we're marching towards. We have that big problem that we're solving. But we also have that beachhead, that MVP, that core infrastructure that we build on top of. And for us, that core infrastructure is email warming, sending, email verification, and finding. That's what we have today. And what's currently in progress, what we're currently building out, testing internally with pilot partners, is full funnel intelligence and attribution. Not only just email copy, but the lead magnets, the landing pages, the voice notes, the videos, all of these things can be hyper-personalized. And we want Luella to serve you on a silver platter the opportunities to create value for relationships that you're in the process of building, where all you need to do is approve, reject, or edit, challenging Luella, collaborating with AI, getting the best of both worlds with AI efficiency and human context. And this is really the only way that we think we can save this channel and solve a lot of problems that we are seeing. We have to reach the right customer with the right message at exactly the right time. And many companies have tried to solve this problem and failed. And we're going to do whatever it takes to make sure this becomes a reality.
Oh no, I'm 100% sure that you guys are going to do it, because just the way you were answering that question told me two things. One, you know the context, you have lived the problem and you've experienced it, and that's the best way to become a builder, because you have that empathy for customers. Second, it's also the passion that you lead with. I can tell. So that's very exciting. And I love the vision because it mirrors the evolution of every entrepreneur. Every entrepreneur, when they start a business, one of the first things they do to check market need or demand is cold email. That's one of the first things they do, right? So you're starting there. And then as a company grows and matures, then they start getting nifty and experimenting with personalization and adding brand voice and, multi-channel approach. And I think you're also going that way, but you're starting with this beachhead. So I like that it's mirroring an evolution of every single entrepreneur's journey out there. It's very organic. It helps you stay connected to your decision makers and your everyday users, which is fantastic. I loved that. But I would like to go back to one question that we were talking about, is how founders what do they need to know about cold outreach and all of that, right? Building off of that, let's say that they have the main framework set up and they have an outbound outreach campaign going on and they want to scale it further. So they're looking to hire an email marketer. What are some of the red flags and green flags that they should look for in their first hire that would be handling outbound or cold outreach?
In a startup environment, founder-led sales is so important. And before you start hiring people, you want to make sure you figured it out yourself. Go through the process of testing different messaging and different databases and learn the trade yourself, because no one is going to care and be as passionate about the problem that you're solving and your ability to get people excited about what you're building than the founders themselves. It's so important that you figure it out before you start building that sales team, just so you can equip that sales team with the right formula for them to build on top of. And when it comes to hires, the most important thing that I look for is scrappiness, right? The last thing that you want is like a VP of sales that has worked at the biggest companies and isn't doing cold outreach themselves, but they need like a team of 24 people just to be useful at all. You want someone that can start at the earliest of stages, that can be scrappy, that that doesn't mind being more of a BDR and booking meetings, but also graduating into the kind of role where you are later pitching meetings. And perhaps later on, when the company grows further, perhaps that person is leading a team as well. So that scrappiness is what's most important to me. And don't be afraid to leverage, consultants and agencies that, are doing outbound across such a large number of, clients across different industries often as well. There's the narrative of AI is just going to replace all agencies and consultants. And I couldn't disagree more. There is a need for those kind of services. There's a need for software. There's a need for agencies and consultants. When you do get to a point where you do want to press your foot on the gas, there are going to be unique strategies that you can collaborate with those kind of organizations with. And that's a big reason for why not only do we have the software, but we're building a small army of outbound agencies and consultants just to augment the AI native experience that we're building.
That makes total sense. And Because the future is not AI, the future is HI, human intelligence,
Mm.
plus AI. It's not purely AI. It can't be. At least not until now. If the AI gods are hearing, I'm not against it. I'm just I'm just saying, I think we could be better together. So
Yeah.
that makes sense. That's awesome. I have one last question and then we'll close this out. Because this is starting off as an email, marketing platform or tool, but you are looking to broaden it out for the entire funnel of marketing. Do you think, as marketers, our role is going to go back to traditional marketers? And what I mean by that is, as traditional marketers, we were looking at newspapers and billboards and all. There was no tech element involved. It was more creativity, right? Now that AI has come into the picture, it can handle all the tech piece and the automation piece. That leaves the creative space to humans. So in that sense, do you feel like marketers in the future will be needing the similar skill sets as marketers in the past? They wouldn't be needing the digital aspect as much, but they would be needing more of the creative aspects, just like marketers from 20 years ago before the internet.
I wouldn't reminisce the traditional way of doing marketing in terms of several decades ago because it was still very much manual back then. So I think it's an entirely new world that we are moving towards where we are able to achieve the efficiencies of AI automation, where rather than having to spend your time analyzing through those databases, you can focus more on the creative and strategic aspects to support the AI models as they're doing a lot of the manual work for you. So I wouldn't reminisce in terms of the traditional way of doing things because there was a lot of shit back then as well. But yeah, definitely a completely new path that we are carving out when it comes to AI and go-to-market.
That makes sense. Okay, that's awesome. I think that's all the questions I had for today. Thank you so much, Mustafa. This was so fun because I got to learn so much about one specific domain and the broader future as well. And it also got me thinking, become a little bit of a futurologist where I'm like, oh, how will the future look like? And do we like it? Do we not like it? So this was a very reflective conversation. I'm gonna go back and ponder about it, but also a very educational one. So thank you so much. This was so much fun.
Thanks for having me on the pod, my three.
It was always a pleasure, and I would love to have you back anytime.